it's Dr. Sabrina Segal here. I'm a neurobiologist, and today is Brain Myth Monday. So, what's the first brain myth I'm going to tackle? It is something that drives neuroscientists crazy, and it's the myth that we only use 10% of our brain. Now, where did this myth come from? It's caught on with the self-help industries so that they can motivate people to say we're capable of more than we even realize, which is something I would agree with, but not because we only use 10% of our brain. So where did this myth come from? Well, some neuroscientists believe that it was started by the famous psychologist William James, who said we were making use of only a small part of our mental and physical resources. Now, this was a theory he had that wasn't backed up by any sort of scientific evidence. It caught on in the self-help industry, and now it's just tossed around as if it's common knowledge. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not true. So let's stop for a second and just examine what that would mean. Well, if we only use 10% of our brains, if you were to remove 90% of your brain, that would leave you with pretty much a sheep brain. Just the cerebellum alone accounts for about approximately 10% of our brains. And the cerebellum is that little cauliflower-shaped structure down at the base of the brain. And it's involved in motor coordination and learning and conditioning. And so just that little structure alone comprises 10% of our brains. It actually means little brain in Latin. Now, while we're blessed to have brain imaging technology like fMRI, I think this might also account for one of the reasons that people believe in this 10% brain myth. Why is that the case? Well, oftentimes when you see these pretty pictures of brains that are lit up in certain regions, people assume that all the other regions in the brain are inactive, when in actuality, what this technology is doing is simply comparing blood oxygenation levels between different areas in the brain. And it's comparing and contrasting those levels so that you get a range of activity depending on the brain region that's involved in that cognitive task. I'll be talking a lot more about fMRI in future videos. But for now, my point is simply that just because certain brain regions are more or less active than others, it doesn't mean that the brain is not always functioning 100% of the time. Now, you can even see this in functional MRI images where the brain is at rest, or actually when the person is sleeping. There's still quite a bit of activity going on in the brain. So if someone told you that you only use 10% of your heart, you would think that was ridiculous. Yet your heart can become more or less active based on your physiological state, your activity levels, and your behavior. But you wouldn't say that because your heart is not beating at its maximum heart rate every second of every day that you're only using 10% of it, right? The bottom line here is what I cautioned about in my previous video, which is basically be curious, do your own research, and don't just believe what's out there in popular media. As a scientist, I'm most interested in spreading accurate knowledge that's based on real scientific findings about how to maximize our own individual neurobiological potentials and understanding how lifestyle habits can improve your own brain health throughout our lives. There, the possibilities are endless. So tune in next week for Brain Myths on Monday. You can also subscribe to my podcast. It's called Action Potential, and it can be found in the iTunes store. It's free, and you can also find more information on the most current research on exercise in the brain at www.drsabrinasegel.com, and the word doctor is spelled out. Until next time, thanks for watching.